Hi folks, welcome back to the Hoard. Time marches on, eh? Look at that. We got like all kinds of nice sky out there. Still got some daylight. Alright, I'm going to talk about troubleshooting a 200X ignition. This bike, I call it the Junkyard Dog. I went to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania to buy, I think it was a 185, a Honda 185 that somebody turned in at a junkyard. And while I closed the deal, it was an eBay deal, I got it, paid him through eBay. And I said, well, while I'm here and you got this huge junkyard, do you have any other three-wheelers or four-wheelers? And he said, oh, I got a half a 200X. And I went and I looked at it, and it was this bike. They cut the rear end out of it, cut the whole back half right off it. So it's got no rear end, but the front suspension is good, and this engine actually started up and ran, which was really pretty cool. So I know this is a running bike. The headlight worked. Everything worked with it, including the on and off switch. So now I got to tell you, the way I troubleshoot these is, this is your CDI. This is called the round plug CDI. And if this CDI doesn't have all its conditions met, it's not going to send energy to your coil, and you're not going to get a spark. That's simple. You're done. So I always look at this thing first. And one of the first things I look at, quite honestly, is this black wire right here. And if you look at your plug, right, looks like you got a smile right on the bottom, two little guys on top, and all those wires. So I drew that out right here, and this first green wire goes to ground, and between body ground, right, I had a wire clamped to the frame here, and I did an ohm reading, and I got less than 1 ohm. This thing has two green wires, which kind of messed with me a little bit, but I figured out this is your pulsar beneath here, and you see one wire is green and the other one's blue, or blue and white. Turns out this green wire goes to the pulsar. So it was open to ground, but so it was open to ground, but if I check between the pulsar, or actually what I did is I unplugged it and I checked here to that green wire, and I got less than 1 ohm, which is expected. And if you go between the green wire and the blue and yellow, or blue and white, right, the blue and yellow is also open to ground, but between these two is 85 ohms. So the pulsar is good for 85 ohms. So I was surprised that this green was open to ground. Maybe it picks up ground in here, I don't know. But your pulsar between here and here, 85 ohms, open to ground, open to ground. Okay? Black and yellow, which goes out to your spark coil here, right? 1 or 2 ohms, between 1 and 2 ohms. This black, just black, right, goes to your on and off. And when it's on, right, it should be more or less an open circuit up in the mega ohm range, or quite honestly opened. And when it's off, it's shorted to ground, right? A lot of times what I do if I'm troubleshooting, I try to figure out very quickly which wire is this one, which is the on and off, and especially like for a China quad or something like that, that has like 20 things hung off the off part of this, I really tried to isolate this. And quite honestly, what I would do with this, I would open this harness up, assuming I couldn't probe it, and isolate it. Every once in a while, one of you guys will ask me, do I think the on and off switch is good? Well, you got to check it to ground. Are you shorted to ground when you turn it on? If that's true, now you got a problem. Be careful. On means run. Off means stop. Stop should be a short to ground. The last wire, right? Black and white. This is the first time I've ever seen Honda do this. This red and black wire right here comes from your stator, and it goes in your wire harness to a black and white, right? Which is how your CDI is getting power. So that one really threw me. And I have another couple of 200Xs floating around that I got to look at a little more closely. But I thought it was very strange. Normally Honda doesn't do that. They normally don't switch wires midstream. What I want to caution you folks about is, as you're probing your wire harness and you get readings that you don't expect, right? Between ground and green, you expect to get less than an ohm. But if you have two greens and you're not getting less than an ohm, now you have to ask yourself, where does this green wire go to? And it was pretty obvious, right? These are the two wires that are going to the pulsar. So you can't just blindly say, oh, I got an open ground, let me nail that to ground somehow. That may or may not be the right thing to do. I have a feeling this thing, inside of this thing, between here and here, these two are tied together. I have a feeling. I don't know that to be true. And I'll be fumbling around for a half hour on camera to show it to you, so let's not. I was also surprised this guy, normally it's the ground, but obviously if this is floating, this too is floating. So between here and here, once again, you got that 85 ohms. But if you go from here to ground, you got opened, and from here to ground, you got opened, which doesn't make sense unless you trace the wires. Black and yellow, once again, out to your coil, and less than an ohm makes sense. Black is in on and off. Black on is opened, off is should be pretty close to a short. And lastly, black and white, which hooks to black and red, which goes to your stator, 140 ohms. Anyway, I hope this saves some troubles if somebody has a 200X. There's also a possibility that the 1984 200X has a different plug on it. It might have a square plug for the 84, and that would make it just like the 200S. And there's videos of mine up on that, or if somebody needs to see it, I can sniff around. I think I have an 84 in this hoard somewhere. I believe 86, by then the bikes were getting rare, and 87 they were getting even more rare. You'd be they're round, but once again they might be different. If somebody has one of those and has some questions, ask, and I'll dig around the hoard, see if I don't have one, and we'll work on it. So I hope this saves a bike from the junkyard. Folks, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, and subscribing. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your heads up, and please get out there and enjoy all your days. Bye now, folks.